just finished watching Earthlings. Extremely depressing. Very graphic, very bloody, very heartbreaking, very eye-opening. I've grown up around animals my whole life. Chickens, horses, dogs. I was into horse riding for years, so seeing these cows and pigs and chickens and dogs and cats and monkeys basically suffer over and over and over in this movie really hits home, especially for those of us who have pets, or those of us who have compassion, which I hope everyone does. You know, some people don't. Those people are serial killers, but, you know. So basically Earthlings is divvied up into 5 sections, or 5 parts. So the first is pets, the second is food, the third is clothing, the fourth is entertainment, and the fifth is science. So it all contains very intense imagery and very emotional stories. Basically what these animals go through for us to have a leather pair of shoes, or for humans to eat a cheeseburger. So from the intro, it basically talks about how our relationship with animals has spoiled with time, how we've gone from, you know, a small amount of animal manipulation, animal usage, to so much now, and how it's gone from bad to much, much worse. So the first one is pets. A lot of people don't consider having pets as a form of, you know, oppression for the pets. So people like me, I guess one thing that the movie did address is how pets are, like, subjective to the owner. So, like, of course I treat my animals very, very well. Other people don't, so they won't get their animals spayed or neutered for whatever reason. Not any good reason, because we have so many animals in our shelters that are getting euthanized. And the craziest thing to me that happened is not all animal shelters can afford euthanasia, so they resort to gas chambers for dogs, where they just stick them in a box basically the size of a cooler, and like 4 or 5 dogs, at least that I saw in the movie, are put into these and gassed. It takes about 20 minutes for them to die, and then they're just thrown into a truck and dumped somewhere. I had no idea that was a thing, and it's outrageous that it is. Euthanasia is painless and quick. I wish it wasn't a thing, but of all the options, it's the best. And I don't even think other people really know that gas chambers exist for dogs. It's so depressing to see that happen. And I think that the worst thing that happened in that pet's portion was a stray dog getting put into a garbage truck by just some guys who thought it might be funny. They put this stray dog, poor little thing, into the back, and you know how garbage trucks kind of crush the garbage? That's where they put the dog, and then they crushed him. And right then is kind of just where I lost it. Like, I couldn't handle that very well. Most of the movie I couldn't handle very well. I don't take blood and gore very well, not even in scary movies where it's all fake, whereas this movie was all real. And it got worse and worse, especially with the food aspect. where it talks about our relationship with animals in the food industry, what they go through, where they're branded on the face, or their tails are cut off, or they are dehorned by these, like, you'd see like gardener clippers. They just kind of do that on the horns without any, painkillers, and they don't put them under first. It just happens. And it's easy to think, okay, well, maybe this happens in places that are cheap animal farms, places that don't care that much, but then there's kosher animal farms where they're not supposed to hardly even touch the animal, where it's supposed to be the prime example of how to raise a cow for food, and they put this cow into a machine, turn the machine upside down while it was still alive, slit the throat, cut open the trachea, exposed all the breathing tubes for the animal, and it's still alive. It is still screaming of pain, it's terrified, it's dying, and at this point, I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's dead now. Like, its throat slit, we're good. It won't be suffering any more than it has. And no, they open the machine, flip it back over, and this cow is still alive. He's struggling, and he's screaming, and I think at one point they, like, kicked blood into its eyes. Like, it's incredible to me what happens behind the scenes that no one sees. And it only gets worse as the video goes on. Part 3 is clothing. So that's leather and fur. And the leather process I did not expect at all, where it's cows from India and what they have to go through, because they're supposed to be raised in a farm their whole life, having a good old jolly time, but then they're transported, and that alone is terrifying to the cows. It promotes illnesses and lameness in their legs, and so the people, to try to get them to keep moving along, they'll put chili peppers in their eyes, they'll purposely break their tails, they'll put tobacco in their eyes, and it's just not like a light brush on. No, they're digging it into their eyes just to keep them moving. And it's just terrible, you know. And these places can't even get in trouble for it because they don't have the regulations like the United States does, where if someone does something like that, they'll get in trouble, hopefully, you know, if they're caught. But they're animals, who cares? And it's terrible. Part 4 is entertainment, where I had no idea a lot of the things that the animals go through just so humans can be entertained by it, and that's kind of putting it lightly. So rodeos, for example, that was the most surprising thing that I saw from this movie. I had no idea that the bulls, so like bull riding, how long they have to stay onto the animal while it's kicking and bucking and going crazy, and then they roll off and then they're done. But that's not the case for the animals. There is a rope tied around their genitalia to hurt them and make them, you know, buck and kick and try to get it off, but they can't. And, you know, beforehand they're poked with electric prods, they're teased, they're pushed, they're hurt, just to get them even more riled up. And that's terrible. I can't believe that that's something that I've, like, watched on TV and been like, oh, you know, nope, I had no idea. A lot of people don't, I imagine. Otherwise, I don't think it'd be as popular as it is. And even if people do know that's the situation happening, why are they okay with it? Ugh. And especially the bullfighting in Spain, where they'll throw spears into the bull, and they'll tease him, and they'll confuse him, and they'll exhaust him, and then they'll just kill it. It's terrible. Especially if any person were to have to go through that, that would be shut down real quick. And that, I guess, is another base for speciesism, is that these things only happen because they're non-humans. They're a different species. So, who cares, right? They feel pain just like the rest of us. The last part is part 5, so science. And this one I've always been a little bit, I don't want to say easy on, but not as, I haven't been, I guess I don't feel strongly about this one. Mainly because I think that if we can find a cure for AIDS through animal testing, then I don't think it's that bad. I don't. So, but when I realized that there's more than just that kind of testing happening, so there's monkeys who will be put in these little machines, and their heads will be in these little steel helmets almost, and then basically thrown against a barrier just to see how their brains react to the damage. I didn't even know that was a science that was going on, and it is, and I don't understand why it's still going on. Just to inflict pain just to see what happens, that's evil. There's no moral to back that up at all. Even there was a pig being burned alive. That being burned alive, like, that is the worst pain you can ever go through. And they had like this torch type thing, like a blowtorch, and they were just going back and forth on the side of this pig. And I figured, okay, that'll probably kill it. But no, they showed the pig shortly after. He was still moving, still breathing, and his skin was cracked and peeling up. It was black. That's how much they had burned him. And, you know, they're innocent. Like, they didn't do anything to deserve it. They don't know anything other than their own interest to stay alive, to not feel pain, to have a social connection, to eat and roam freely. It's wrong, completely. So for the conclusion, it basically brought it all together by saying that all of these animals go through pain and suffering, and that none of it is okay. All animals are sentient to an extent where they have an interest not to feel pain. They have an interest to actively not feel pain and suffer and go through all the things that they have to go through just for humans to progress. Or not even always progress, because now humans have more cancer and more obesity, and a lot of it is linked to meat eating. There's more domestic abuse in families that work in slaughterhouses. You know, people who work in slaughterhouses have more PTSD and depression. And it's not only bad for the animals, but bad for humans. You see the people that are working in these places in the movie, and it's, you know, you see how they treat the animals, you wonder how they treat other people. So every animal, human, non-human, feels pain. And that is the main interest, I think, of people who are against speciesism, is that they want to protect the rights of those animals and the interests of those animals so that they don't have to go through pain anymore. I think that everyone should watch this movie if they are trying to make a change, make a difference. I don't think that people of all ages should watch this, or if you have a sensitive stomach, be very wary and have a lot of determination to get through it. But I think that it is important to watch this if you are a person who wants to challenge your own ideals, a person who wants to progress and make a difference in some way or another. You know, if you want to have a family, how you want to raise your kids to treat animals, and in turn how they will treat other people. And that way you can look back and really see, like, okay, I opened my eyes in this way and learned this new thing about myself and about our society. And I think that's one extremely important thing to keep in mind when you do watch movies like this. Earthlings is not soft, it's not squishy, it's not gonna sugarcoat anything. It's meant to be very in your face, and you have to have a lot of determination to get through this movie. But I know that it will change your view, and it would change someone's opinions on how we treat animals and what we should be using them for. One important quote at the end of the movie was, it was like, don't bite the hand that feeds you, or we reap what we sow, and we can only guess what will happen, you know, because we rely on animals for these very important 5 parts of our human society, and what happens if we run out, or, you know, it's crazy to think. But yeah, I would just say good luck watching it, and have a tissue box and a trash can nearby.